Hello, my name is Almin and I'm presenting for DAN 101 Master Studio A Assessment 1. This is a content page of what this project is about. And starting from Project Vision, this project is to build a collaborative and adaptive learning center for architecture and built environment that embrace inclusivity, diversity, and equality. So this presentation and document will be my initial response to the client brief from my research and perspective of view. Before getting into details, I just want to state that we acknowledge our uni and site stand on Aboriginal land, and we pay our full respect to their elders, past, present, and emerging. After reading the brief for multiple times, I started from focusing on the idea of connectivity. When I mean by connectivity, it doesn't only mean by physical connections, but also is the aspect of connecting users to different community, nature, and culture. These three aspects has always been my manifesto since I personally think that they relate to us users, and the relationship of these three aspects are tied together very closely. I will be explaining a little bit more on the later slides about the design principle and the design approach. So inclusivity is a very broad and extensive concept, so I try to stick with my three principles to list out what we can do as an architecture student. And my rough understanding of inclusivity is trying to include every user with the equal experience and resources within the space. In inclusive support, my approach is to create a space that can improve people's well-being through mentally, physically, and socially. I read a report about city dwellers have a 20% higher chance of suffering anxiety, and even 40% of them would develop depression. So at the same time, sense of safetyness is also what I'm trying to achieve. Feeling safe doesn't mean to be being safe. Anxiety, depression, all these can lead to a cause of feeling unsafe. So rough idea is to increase the use of greenery and open space to bring out the sense of relief. For radical inclusivity, it's focusing on the idea of connectivity. Equality will be the word we are looking at. Self-improvement and determination, and of course, more importantly, is to embrace different culture within the community. But achieve so, communication would be the key. So creating a space that can encourage people to share and collab would be great. Transparency and accessibility with a broad and horizontal approach in order to create official connections, and most importantly, providing an equal access and support on technology for everyone. Last but not least, diversity. Adaptive and flexible space would be another key point to focus. And also creating diversity and enhance the current online teaching would also be very helpful as well. I believe we all have a certain understanding of our site, so I will just point out what's important for my proposal. The site is on the very edge of QET, which has a nice connection towards the botanical garden and also a riverside view. For the circulation, Brisbane City has a quite comprehensive public and active transportation network. And since it's next to the riverside, it's very important to do some flood-resistant planning. And here's a bit of the climate and Aboriginal context. I did struggle a lot on how to connect Aboriginal culture into the proposal, so I looked into a few Aboriginal architects and projects such as Kelvin O'Brien, which I think spiritual and psychological means can give us a vision of Aboriginal culture. Let's say caring, engaging, and self-identity is what I'm trying to include in here. Here's some diagram that I did for the Aboriginal research, a little bit of site context, and here's the historical timeline of QUT development. I try to categorize them into build, climate, indigenous, and pedagogy contexts. And here's a little post-COVID brainstorm and research on how should the space be planned during post-COVID. Then I did some research on current pedagogy. After the pandemic, the current teaching trend consists of both traditional face-to-face and online classes. Two types of PBL is often seen in architecture education, which is project-based and problem-based. Some pros and cons in the diagram, and also some research on what problems people are facing in online learning. And I've concluded in our inclusivity slides, like solving digital divide with technology support. One thing I want to point out is that I think the current online teaching system cannot replace the traditional learning fully. So my focus of this project is how to enhance the current system with the space. For the president and case study, I have done 3, the Harvard Gun Hall, LTB in Monash, and the School of Design in Melbourne University. To wrap up a bit, these cases tends to have more horizontal and broader approach for both visual connection and cross-discipline. That helps to create free thinking atmosphere like Harvard, or interesting collab space in Monash, or to create highly flexible space in Melbourne U. So all the research from the previous slides leads to a design approach, flexible space with horizontal approach, visibility between spaces, and engaging collaborative space, appreciating nature and landscape, and also creating a sensational experience on embracing different culture. And here's the accommodation of the schedule of accommodation, a little bit of research and analysis of the current schedule, and I did a little bit of changes on the schedule of accommodation, and we can see a little bit of difference and the comparison between them. Then this is a rough budget cost estimation. And here comes to design development. Here are some diagrams and testing during the design process, and I finally stick with this curvy shape of the building with some passive design strategies. Then this slide shows a little bit of spatial planning, and on the ground floor mostly would be the public accessible space or highly engaged activity like workshop and lab and exhibition. And then for level 1, which is mainly about learning activities like studio and learning space with a nice atrium in the middle. Then for the top level will be staff use only, so you can see the privacy increase with levels. The first diagram visualizes how the 1,000 capacity car park would look like on site, which looks a little bit overwhelming in my opinion, so I looked into some research and find for a solution. And I suggest to cut it to around 350 car park instead, with some end of trip flexibility. The reason why I'm suggesting this is due to the Brisbane City Council development, which states that Brisbane will be promoting active and public transport in the future, and they are building different infrastructure like Brisbane Metro and etc. So this will be my initial response to the brief, and here's a little bit of the master plan and section, and a little bit of analysis of how passive design will occur in this building. So let's wrap this up with a little bit of material, structure, and inspiration. For the material usage, green concrete is something that I've been looking into. Green concrete is a kind of more environmentally friendly concrete, which has a lower carbon dioxide emission or even none for some of it. And timber can actually add some warmth to the space for both exterior and interior. And then for the structure, my plan is to use concrete as the base with steel on top, solid steel structure. So it will be a concrete steel composite for the whole building. And for the ceiling, I might use a little bit of timber corporate ceiling to make it draw in more sunlight and do a better cross ventilation strategy. And here's some inspiration that I taken from different case study to show a rough image what I'm trying to do with the material and structure. So yeah, thank you so much. This is the end of my presentation.